What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gallop Out. And hey, I'm joined by Jackson today. I haven't seen your face in a little bit. How you doing, man? Happy Sunday.
What's up? Anytime the Eagles win on Sunday, it's a good day.
Yeah, I can't say the same. I am a Browns fan, and it is just sadness everywhere I look. I hope we get Myles Garrett up out of Cleveland. Just get him somewhere he could be happy, because clearly it is not with the Browns. Yeah, sure. Why not? Fly Eagles, fly, man. Take all the players you want. We're gonna switch gears, and we're gonna go into horse racing because we have the Breeders' Cup coming up in 5 days. 5 is the magic number. Of course, that's Friday, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Day, and Saturday is the big day with all of the major Breeders' Cup cars. And joining us today, he's making all the morning lines for the Breeders' Cup for the first time this year. Best morning line maker in the game. I'm pretty sure that's undisputed info, right, Jackson? Yeah, you'd agree with that. Yeah, best morning line maker in the game. On top of that, he's an excellent handicapper. He has shows over on DRF, and he's constantly tweeting. I don't know how this man has time to sleep, but our guest is David Aragona. David, welcome back. How are you doing today?
Thank you for that very kind intro. I'm doing pretty good. A little frustrated. I just took a couple of really tough beats in the last 2 races at Aqueduct to close out the week. So hopefully I got those out of the system for next week, because we don't want any tough beats for the Breeders' Cup.
I hope so too. Did you also have the 2 in the last race at Aqueduct?
I had Romeo Void in the last race. Yep, looked like he made the winning move down on the rail and got nailed on the wire. Had the Wesley Ward horse in the prior race that got so looked like he had won the race at the 8th pole. Got a resurgent winner on the inside, came back to beat him. So yeah, those were tough to take, but hopefully they're out of the system by this point.
Yes, I hope they're out of the system, because we have a big week coming up this next week, and we're going to get into the 4 major kind of Breeders' Cup races on Friday, Saturday, that being the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, the Breeders' Cup Turf, and the Breeders' Cup Classic. We're going to go over the top contenders in there and just get general thoughts on those races as we approach the big day. But first, question for you, David. It's your first year making the morning lines for the Breeders' Cup, and we were talking on the pre-show about how it came together maybe rather quickly, but making morning lines is nothing new to you. What has the process been like, though, with 14 championship caliber races where you have runners from all over the world?
Yeah, so the last few years, I've been doing the morning lines for Daily Racing Form that get published in the Racing Form for the Breeders' Cup. So we would do our own morning lines for the races, and then obviously, they have the official track morning lines that's disseminated to everybody. So I had made morning lines for the Breeders' Cup the past couple of years, just not viewed by as wide of an audience as will, be assessing these lines that I make for this upcoming Friday and Saturday. But we partnered with the Breeders' Cup this year, the Daily Racing Form, and as part of that, I get to do the morning lines for this event. It's obviously an honor. The Breeders' Cup, one of the major events in the country, so to do the morning lines for them, it's a lot of work, but also, it's a fun exercise. Going through all of these horses, especially with a lot of the European shippers and horses from Japan, a lot of puzzle pieces to put together when it comes to the Breeders' Cup, assessing how foreign entries are going to be assessed versus their American counterparts. So I've been doing a lot of the research, looking up a lot of these horses over the past several weeks. I've been publishing lines for the contenders for the past few weeks on the Daily Racing Forum's website and in the Daily Racing Forum publication, and for the pre-entries this past week. So I've been refining things over the past few weeks, but trying to make those final adjustments for when entries come out tomorrow.
Yeah, official entry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jackson.
I was going to ask, are you basically done, or are you someone who's going to take the post position draw into consideration for these races?
So in the past, the Breeders' Cup has wanted the morning lines before the post position draw, so that you can't really take post position into account. I think you might have noticed on their draw show in past years, the morning lines are already up there when they draw the post positions. This year, they are going to allow me to make changes when the post position comes out for all races except the Classic. I think they're going to run with my line for the Classic and show that on screen for the draw tomorrow. But for all the other races, I'll have a very small window to make some minor adjustments. Let's say if a horse that I thought was going to be favored in the Juvenile Turf draws post 14, I'll get to adjust for that. So I'll manage all that tomorrow. Probably won't have a whole lot of time to make adjustments, but I imagine there aren't going to be too many adjustments necessary based on post position. I guess there would have been a time when Fierceness drawing the rail and the Classic would have been a death sentence for him, but I don't think people view him that way anymore.
No, definitely not. That's a really good question, Jackson, because we have always seen the morning lines, instantly available. So I do think the Classic 2 is probably the race least affected by post-position draw because you do have the entire length of the stretch. So I like that. And without further ado, we'll get on into it. We're going to start with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. It's going to go with race number 7 on Friday. 10 races carded for Friday. This is race number 7. We're going the mile and the 16th for the 2-year-old Fillies. We're going to talk the top 3 contenders in here. That's most likely going to be Tommy Joe, who, of course, just got put up via DQ at Cleveland. Oh, sorry, accidental click there. You have Explora as well, and then Bottle of Rouge, the 2 West Coast Baffert horses. But we'll start the convo with the East Coast runner Tommy Joe, Spendthrift Farm, who had an excellent Cleveland meet, and Todd Fletcher. David, what were your thoughts on this runner? Obviously, kind of lost her action, rather, coming down the stretch last time at Keeneland. She had 2 very strong efforts before that. Do you anticipate her bouncing back in a big way?
Yeah, this feels like it's a pretty wide open race. The main contenders, they look very similar on speed figures. It doesn't feel like any one of them has been keeping particularly tougher company than anybody else. So it is the kind of race where I would want to do a little bit of price shopping among, let's say, the 5 main contenders in this race. And Tommy Joe is definitely one of them. I do think that she was a little disappointing last time, stretching out in the Alcibiades, and it has to bring up some concerns that maybe she just isn't going on around 2 turns, and she might be more of a 1-turn horse. We'll see what they decide to do with her next year when there are the options to campaign a horse as a top sprinter versus a top older horse that's going towards the Kentucky Oaks. But in this particular race, it depends on what price she is. I mean, if she's going to be 7-2 or lower, I think I probably would want to look elsewhere because I just do have some concerns about how far she wants to go. I personally don't know that she was going to get past Percy's bar, even if not for that foul in mid-stretch of the Alcibiades last time. So I'm kind of on the fence about her. But look, she was precocious over the summer. She ran really well in those 2 races at Saratoga. So it's not like it would be some big surprise if she bounces back here.
No doubt. I do anticipate her to be one of the top choices. Jackson, are you along the same lines as David there, trying to go price shopping in a race of 2-year-old fillies?
Well, definitely for this specific race, yeah. I don't think any of these favorites are a standout by any means. I'm a little disappointed that there's not more horses taking a chance in this race. Because I wish this was a field of 12 fillies where you'd have a bunch of long shots that could be on the improve and there'd be appealing prices. But it just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case by the time the entries come out tomorrow.
Yeah, I do share your sentiments there. I would assume your morning line favorite is going to be Explora. Obviously, I don't know that. But judging off of the last win going 2 turns and passing that test, Percy's Bar, I think, is maybe an interesting horse. Maybe, if people do get re-attracted to Tommy Joe, perhaps they kind of lean in that direction. Bottle of Rouge is maybe a little bit interesting. Who is going to be trying 2 turns for the first time? Iron Orchard, fresh off of, I believe, an auction or a sale, rather, off that last win in the Frizette. A 7-horse field.
Let me ask David, because Ryan has a theory. If the horses get sold before the week before the race, or if they announce the stud fee or whatever, the horses are an automatic toss, and I think he's absolutely nuts.
I mean, I've heard people say that about horses that are going off to stud, like a 3-year-old when they announce the stallion deal in August, that you don't want no part of them after that. I don't know. I mean, we've seen it gone both ways. With this particular situation, it's a little weird for her to sell at auction, for $2.5 million this early in her career. I mean, just kind of tracking the developments with this horse. I remember right after the Frizette, Danny Gardner was saying, I kind of don't want to go to the Breeders' Cup because she's a horse who needs time between races. She's a lighter framed horse who I just don't know if she wants to run back in 4 weeks. And I mean, obviously the new owners now definitely want to run her in the Breeders' Cup. You're not paying that much money if you're not going to get a Breeders' Cup horse. So I don't know what I make of that. I didn't love the Frizette as the race, but I mean, I didn't love any of these prep races. So she's not out of it by any means for me. I just think she might have a few more questions to answer than some others in this field.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad take at all. I'm going to stick with mine where if, you decide to sell a horse and right before a race, so you go off the stud, maybe I'm going to, think you're not going to take the same amount of chances as you would if you were still trying to get whatever stallion deal. That's just me, though. I'm going to have that opinion, and we'll keep things moving. It is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. We won't spend too much time on there. Again, they're 2-year-old fillies, so they can be volatile race to race, and Jackson, I'm with you, and I think David agrees. I do wish we had more horses just in here just to take a shot because, again, there's no world beaters in a field of 2-year-old fillies, and they can jump up race by race. Yep. Next one we'll go to is going to be the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, going as race number 9 on the card on Friday. Between Brant and Ted Noffey. I want to say Ned Toffee so bad every time I get to that name. Between those two, one of them is going to be the favorite. I would imagine it's Ted Noffey. Very powerful win in the Breeders' Futurity last time at Keeneland. Top two choices in here. David, do you view this as a two-horse race, or do you think this is maybe right for an upset as well?
I mean, I haven't really finalized my handicapping yet. Obviously, I want to see how these races come together, and especially doing the morning lines this year, I've really just kind of been focused on that portion of it, assessing where the public is at. I've been watching a lot of racing content to see where, handicappers' minds are at assessing these horses, so I can sort of, just keep tabs on what the sentiment is moving towards the draw for these races, and I'll kind of do my own handicapping afterwards. So I don't know which one of these horses I'm going to prefer on the day. Obviously, Ted Noffey is the one that has fewer questions to answer. He's already shown in the Breeders' Futurity that he handled the two turns. He beat what I thought was a decent field and did it pretty convincingly. I mean, it was nice to see him back up that high 90s buyer that he got in the Hopeful and do it over a longer distance. Look, I don't know if he's going to be a Kentucky Derby horse. His pedigree might, give you some questions about whether a 1.25 miles is going to be up his alley. But for where he is right now at the end of his 2-year-old season, he is squarely the horse to beat in this race. And I do have some more questions, not only about the distance for Brandt, but also if Brandt is really quite as good as that 101 buyer that he earned going, 5.5 furlongs on debut. I don't want to put too much stock in a triple-digit buyer speed figure going that short. And his Del Mar Futurity, I mean, didn't knock my socks off. It was okay, but it's not the kind of performance that would make me too scared if I were Ted Noffey's connections.
I 100% agree. And the second place finisher in the Del Mar Futurity, Desert Gate, was announced as a scratch earlier today. Yeah. And then you have Civil Liberty, who was supplemented into this race by Doug O'Neill and connections. I don't know how enthusiastic people are on his chances. Jackson, do you view it then as a one-horse race, or you may be trying to get creative in here?
I don't know. I haven't really decided in this race yet. I'm not completely sold on Ted Noffey, and I don't want to completely discount Blackout Time either, who I did like in that Breeders' Futurity. I thought he just, Ted Noffey just got the jump, and they kind of just stayed in place. They were never got much separation from each other. I wonder if he was more aggressive in that spot. If he had made a move a little earlier, could have made it a little bit closer. And I mean, I gotta imagine he's going to be 6 or 7 to 1 in here at least. So at that kind of price, I would be interested, especially from this barn, who they usually improve with more racing. But this is a good race. I think Intrepido has a shot too. I don't think it's just Ted Noffey in this spot, especially if he's going to be even money in here.
I agree. I think Comport has a shot. You mentioned Blackout Time. What a year for Not This Time as well as a stallion. Mm-hmm. He seems to be winning everything, his progeny. So Blackout Time, obviously a contender in there. David, you mentioned something a little earlier when we first started talking about this race. As you create the morning lines, you said that you're looking at various outlets and different media, different handicappers to kind of gather the public idea. That I feel like is the right way to make a morning line. How difficult is it to, absorb all that content for your morning line and then transition into making your handicapping opinions?
I mean, I'm used to it by this point. I mean, when I first started making morning lines back in 2018, it was a little weird because I was always handicapping and thinking about my own opinions, and to suddenly have to think about how other people view the race and then transition to my own view was a little awkward. But I mean, doing the morning lines for, Saratoga, Aqueduct, Belmont, I mean, I'm pretty used to it by this point. I do handicapping for that circuit as well. So, I mean, this one's a little weird because it's more time just thinking about the morning line. Obviously, these races aren't drawn yet, and you're thinking about who's going to run in these races for a long time before they get drawn. So public sentiment can change over that period of a few weeks. And, we've seen some horses have really impressive workouts that, might attract buzz their way, or, trainers might release a quote that, changes sentiment on a horse, or they go from one race into a different race, like we just saw with Copia and from the Filly and Mare Sprint into the Sprint. So, I mean, those things will change how you're viewing those races. But, for this purpose, I think I'll have plenty of time to do the handicapping once the races are drawn on Monday. And this particular race, the Juvenile, there haven't been too many developments that have changed things. I mean, obviously, as you said, Desert Gate was withdrawn this week, but he was probably going to be, third or fourth choice in this race. So his withdrawal doesn't change too much. And this is just another field where things look pretty straightforward.
Excellent answer. Thanks for elaborating in there. That's going to be the Breeders' Cup Juvenile going as race number 9 on Friday. We'll move on to Saturday's card, where things maybe are a little bit less straightforward as we go to race number 8, the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Turf. Very deep field here. David, in your first year making these morning lines for the Breeders' Cup, as DRF has partnered with the Breeders' Cup, what kind of added level of complication was it to have these foreign shippers come in? How did you have to kind of expand your reach to gather the intel needed to make an accurate morning line?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm doing lines for races like this, I mean, you can look at some overseas bookmakers to see how they're pricing horses. You know, I'm on Odds Checker like every day, checking how the prices are moving. And in a race like the Breeders' Cup Turf, I think that's a big help because so much of the field is comprised of horses that are based overseas. So the relative merits of them and support over there, you can get a sense of that. Sometimes I feel like you don't want to use the Odds Checker as just like a direct translation for the horses that are based in the U.S. because they sometimes favor the U.S. horses when you look at the price. I should say the European horses when you look at the prices over there. But for this race, I mean, it seems like the consensus is that Mini Hawk and Rebels Romance are going to be the two clear favorites. And it does feel like there is a lot of support behind Mini Hawk at the moment, coming off that second place finish in the Arc last time. If she repeats that kind of performance, she's going to be really tough to beat, even if Rebels Romance produces his best form. But I mean, at least Rebels Romance does have the proven U.S. form. You know that he comes to North America and he runs to a top level. He's done it in Breeders' Cups past, and he just did it last month at the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. So from that perspective, Rebels Romance is almost the more reliable option. It's just a matter of whether or not the Mini Hawk that we saw last time at Longchamp is going to show up at Del Mar on Saturday.
Excellent. Yes, that's a 3-year-old filly going against a 7-year-old gelding. So a lot of difference in the age and experience of these horses. But Mini Hawk, as you mentioned, off that really hard trying second in the Arc last time out, certainly merits a lot of respect. I have a question from Chris Couples. Do you really think do you anticipate Mini Hawk being shorter than Rebels Romance in the morning lines based off that last performance and the body of work we've seen for Rebels Romance as well?
Yeah, I mean, looking at how some of the lines are set overseas right now, I mean, they have Mini Hawk as low as even money, and Rebels Romance, between like I think 11-3 or like between 5-2 and 3-1. So, I mean, on my current line, I think I have Mini Hawk 8-5 and Rebels Romance 5-2. So I grouped them a little closer than that. Rebels Romance, obviously, I mean, he has name recognition, having come to the U.S. before and conquered the Breeders' Cup Turf a couple of times already. But Mini Hawk, I mean, she just has that upward movement in her form. And Aidan O'Brien, we're so used to him winning these races. I do think she's going to take a lot of money here. We'll see. I don't think there's going to be some huge disparity between the two, though.
Yeah, I do anticipate them to be pretty close in price. Jackson, what are your overall thoughts on the body of this field? Obviously, we have two very top contenders, but this race is competitive year in, year out.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing for me, at least, is this pace scenario, because usually when we have these European turf horses coming over, we're expecting them to, drop out the back and come with these big late runs, but that's not really the case with Mini Hawk. She's usually pretty involved, as is Rebels Romance, obviously, and even Goliath is a horse that's, when he's running at his best, he's usually up there, and it's going to be a little bit different than usual. Silouise, another horse coming from overseas. I know he ran at Woodbine, but he made all in that race, and kind of interested. There's a chance this thing could, if they move too early, this thing could really fall apart. And if that does happen, it's going to open it up to a lot of big prices. So this is another race I still have to do some work on, but I'm very interested to see how this pace shakes up.
Yeah, no doubt. Jackson and David, I'm curious, is this one of the races where, even if the morning lines aren't affected, where post position would play a huge factor in who you like and do not like after kind of the handicapping is done, with this being a 3-turn race out Del Mar?
For me, I'm going to say post position doesn't matter too much in this race. I mean, obviously, going around 3 turns on the turf, you want to save some ground wherever you're positioned. You don't want to be stuck out 3 to 4 wide every step of the way. But we have seen, especially with Rebels Romance, that he is capable of making like a half-mile move and sustaining it. Even last year, I mean, you might remember, I mean, it's not like he saved ground all the way. He made an early move to take the lead around the far turn, so he was able to cut over towards the inside at that point, and he just kept staying on all the way to the wire. I know it got close at the end, but he's got that stamina where he can just keep on when they start asking very early. So I think that they're, like you were saying, I think they're going to start racing pretty early in this race, and maybe that's going to expose the stamina of some horses that want to get held up and produce that turn of foot in the stretch. But a lot of the years that are coming over, even Mini Hawk, I mean, she's got tons of stamina, so it's going to be interesting. You could see these horses hooking up at the half-mile pole and dueling all the way to the wire. We'll see who that really favors, but yeah, I agree. Based on their running styles, it should be an interesting race to watch unfold.
It should be, and your point on the post position, I think, was pretty accurate, seeing as Rebels Romance from post 11 last year was able to get the win, and the time before when this was at Del Mar, Yabir from post position 10 was able to win. Both different running styles. Yabir obviously didn't make that move until they turned for home when he swung about 37 wide, but it was all about keeping that horse in the clear that day, whereas Rebels Romance, as you said, kind of just made that aggressive half-mile move and was able to sustain it all the way to the wire, holding on by just a neck towards the end. Jackson, what about you? Any factor of post position here, or do you just kind of have to trust that the jockeys are going to be where they need to be?
I mean, I guess it can matter for who goes to the front, but other than that, I don't think it makes too big a difference. But to add your point, even my boy Gold Phoenix at 50-1 last year ran fourth from post 12, so I don't think the post is going to matter a whole lot in this race.
I like it. Chris Couples with another comment here. Rebels Romance. The pace does not matter. He adapts to whatever's needed. Ground's the only thing that can beat him, and he's going to be hearing his feet rattle all day at Del Mar. It is supposed to be like 77 through 80 degrees this next week, and then it's supposed to cool down a little bit for the Breeders' Cup weekend. Speaking of which, David, will you be out on the West Coast for the Breeders' Cup this year?
No, I'm not going out this year. I kind of wish I could, but the whole morning line thing came together a little bit late, so I didn't want to change plans too much. But no, I'll be doing it remotely this year. Hopefully, get to a Breeders' Cup in the next couple of years, though 2 years from now, it won't be too hard for me to get to the one in New York.
Yeah,
that one is probably going to be one of the most anticipated Breeders' Cups over the new field at beautiful Belmont Park that's currently undergoing all of their renovations. That's going to be the Breeders' Cup turf. In terms of the top contenders that we're going to talk about. And lastly, we do have to move on to race number 9. It's the main race of the year. It is one of the most highly anticipated Breeders' Cup Classics. David, first, what are your feelings on being able to create the morning lines for one of the deepest Breeders' Cup Classic fields we've ever seen, but also with almost an absolute standout of a 3-year-old facing Olders for the first time in Sovereignty?
No, it's cool. I mean, there are fan bases for these horses. I mean, it's a race that I think everyone is looking forward to so much, and having a horse like Sovereignty that has just really captured the imagination of so many people in the game. He's the star attraction in this race. And I mean, from my perspective, making the morning line for this race, it feels like opinions around so many of these horses are basically hardened at this point. So it makes it easier to make the line because you kind of know how people are going to view these horses. And yeah, Sovereignty is going to be a clear-cut favorite. How short? I'm kind of still deciding about that. I mean, I'm kind of somewhere between 6-5 and 8-5 at the moment. We'll see how short I go with him. But look, he's squarely the horse to beat in this race. And as long as the trip works out, he's going to be a handful. I mean, it seems like he has maintained his form and his flesh really well into the fall of his 3-year-old campaign. And gosh, if he takes a step forward from the Travers, I mean, it's going to put him in a different stratosphere than this field. So I'm very interested to see how he does, how it plays out on the racetrack. But it really does go through sovereignty in this classic.
It truly does. He's been a sensational 3-year-old. He's on the grounds at Del Mar. I've been able to see him the last 3 mornings as, I'm going on hour 12 of me being awake because, the track opens at 4 a.m. So I'm a little bit tired, but Sovereignty, when he steps onto the track, he dwarfs every other horse. He looks like a grown man out there. If you guys follow football and know who Isaiah Pacheco is, he runs like he's angry at the ground, and that's similar to how Sovereignty runs. He runs like he wants to do so much more, and he's just waiting to get unleashed. And I got to say, seeing him in the mornings, I've come around to him a little bit. He seems like a true beast among these. I will say, has it been just maybe a little bit weird seeing is you're going to have a short price in Sovereignty, but you're going to have, last year's Classic winner, Sierra Leone. You're going to have the Pacific Classic winner and 2-for-2 runner at Del Mar, Fierceness. You're going to have these horses be, 5-6 to 1. You're going to have Forever Young, who is run phenomenally, basically everywhere he's gone. They're all going to be, those middling prices. Some of these horses that have won grade 1s this year, Journalism, for example, he's going to be in the double digits, I would imagine, and rightfully so. But has that been just a little bit maybe strange, if anything, as you've gone to handicap just because of the prices of those horses?
I mean, yeah, I hear what you're saying, because we thought of last year's classic field as being a strong one. And like these 3 horses, since they were staying in training as 4-year-olds, they were just going to dominate this year. And suddenly a horse like Sovereignty comes along and he looks like he's better than all of them. So it is a little weird that they're all going to be bettable prices coming back in this classic. And Sierra Leone especially, I mean, when I first started the exercise of making the morning line for this race like 3 weeks ago, I had him as the second choice initially. And I kind of, every time I go back to revise this line, I've been raising his price and raising his price a little bit, because as I'm kind of surveying opinion out there, it seems like nobody likes Sierra Leone in this race. And I kind of understand it, because you look how this field is coming up, there's really not a whole lot of speed in here. And I mean, they kind of have to run the Rabbit in this race, because I feel like he'd have no chance if they didn't. Not that the Rabbit is going to completely change the way this race is run. I bet most of the jockeys just ignore his presence in here, but at least it gives Sierra Leone a little bit more pace to close into. But he's a horse who is pace dependent, and he needs things to go his way. They went his way in last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. It's hard to imagine him getting that same trip again against this field. And he's got to outclose a horse like Sovereignty, who's just has shown more explosive finishing speed than Sierra Leone has this year. So initially, I thought Sierra Leone was going to be the second choice in this race, and now I'm kind of between making him the third or even fourth choice in this Classic. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, if you're looking to beat Sovereignty in this race, I think you're going to get a fair enough price on anybody else.
No doubt. Jackson, your thoughts on this Classic field as they come together? I know the horse that you like, so you can talk about his chances a little bit, and the price you're going to get is going to be more than fair.
I'm back and forth between him and Forever Young for all the reasons that David said about Sierra Leone. I just don't. What's the scenario where he gets the right kind of setup in here? Is it Fierceness just runs off and goes with the Rabbit for some reason? But even that probably sets up. Every scenario that sets up for Sierra Leone also sets it up for Sovereignty as well. Is the issue, and then he's still going to have to outkick Sovereignty catch him from behind. So I really want to pick Sierra Leone, but I just can't get there at the price that he's probably going to be. And then Sovereignty, I mentioned you, Ryan, after the Pacific Classic, that it bugged me a little bit how easily Fierceness defeated Journalism, because we kind of at this point, Journalism is a little bit inferior to Sovereignty at this point. And that was the only data point we had until yesterday, when Bracket Buster and Gosker ran that Keeneland race, and they were both handled pretty easily by Hitchshow, who is not nearly at the caliber of anyone else that's going to be favored in this spot. So that's the concern I have about Sovereignty, to where I really want to take 3-2 on him when I have Fierceness at 4-1, or Forever Young at 8-1, or whatever they're going to end up being. They're going to be 3 or 4 times the price of Sovereignty in that race, and I'm not sure he's that much more likely to win than these horses. So Fierceness, as you said, is going to be towards the front. He loves Del Mar. He's done things at Del Mar that he has not done at other tracks, which is overcome adversity in both of those efforts. So depending on what price he's going to be, I'm kind of leaning that way. But Forever Young, if he runs back to that race in Saudi, he is going to be very, very tough to beat, because that was just a monster performance that day.
Yep. It was without a doubt. That's a good analysis there. Yeah, that Saudi Cup run was phenomenal, to say the least. I don't know, David, if you are capped at what number you can make a horse on the morning line, but if you're allowed to make a horse 99-1 or above that, would Contrary Thinking fit into that bubble?
Yeah, I'm not going to make him 99. That's a little too cute. But I mean, I'm going to make him 50. I mean, I've gotten no directive yet that I can't use 50-1. I know some tracks don't like to do that. I don't know if I've seen 50-1 at the Breeders' Cup before, but I'm going to use it if they let me. And yeah, I'll use it on Contrary Thinking. Look, he's not going to win this race. I'm fine with him running. I mean, if they want to, what does it cost to get into this field? Like $75,000, like to pre-entry, and then I think $75,000 more to enter. So if they want to pay like a double entry fee, I think it's $150 for Sierra Leone and $150 for his Rabbit just to get into the race. I mean, fine. I mean, if somebody's going to put up that much money, they should be allowed to run. I don't think he has a chance in the race, but I also don't think he's really going to mess up the chances of anybody else. I mean, the people that are saying it's like a safety issue that he's running in the race because of the Jockey Club Gold Cup are just, I think they're being a little ridiculous. A fluky thing happened last time. It's very unlikely that there's going to be any scenario that's remotely similar to that in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
I echo your sentiments completely. Jackson, I know your thoughts are that, Contrary I think he's just gonna run off and basically just run off for a little bit, as far as he can go, for as long as he's not going to hook up with Fierceness. He's not going to do this, that, and the other. Last question I have is we'll wrap up the Breeders' Cup Classic talk. Baeza and Journalism. They've kind of been 2-3 throughout the entire running of this 3-year-old year with how they've run, and the form has really held up well since the early spring. And every time they run against each other, every time they faced those common opponents, they keep those similar running lines. In the Breeders' Cup Classic, do you anticipate Baeza still being maybe a little bit of a longer price on the board than Journalism, or are they going to be around the same?
No, I think at the moment I've got Journalism at 10 and Baeza at 15. So, I mean, they'll attract some support. Journalism probably a little more so. But they're going to be bigger prices in this race, and they're supposed to be. I mean, they've just not been in the same league as Sovereignty. And, I mean, getting back to what Jackson was saying before, I mean, if you're poking holes in Sovereignty, it is that he's never faced a field that's anywhere close to this tough. I mean, Journalism's a really good horse, and Baeza's another really good horse. But I mean, no one's, mistaking them as the top contenders in this race, unless you're a huge fan of one of those horses. So Sovereignty is really stepping up against the best field he's ever met, and it kind of reminds me of going back to 2006 when Bernardini was all the rage, and he had won the Travers so impressively, and he was this huge favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but he was stepping up against a group of older horses that he had never really faced before. I think he had won the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but it wasn't a strong Gold Cup in the fall, and I think Bettor's just sort of overestimated his talents a little bit. And I think that is a possibility with Sovereignty. I do think it's also possible he improves again from the Travers, which might put him out of the league from this field. But how short of a price is too short? I'm not exactly sure, but I understand both viewpoints, that he's too good for these, and that also this might be finally the time to take a shot against him. Because, a horse like Forever Young, he's done nothing except knockouts against the best horses all over the world. So that he can hang with this kind of company, just whether or not he gets the right trip to be successful against a field like this. It's a really interesting race.
It is a very interesting one. You brought up, the point and counterpoint to Sovereignty, which is, if you think he's better than all these, then very deserving favorite. Or if you want to poke a hole in him, you're going to get that price that you want. David, thank you. I know it's been a very busy week. I wanted to, not go on too long. We just had Emmett Kennedy of the Final Furlong podcast on, and I was talking to him for maybe 2.5 hours. So we'll keep this one significantly shorter than all the Euro runner talk. But David, can't thank you enough for taking the time to kind of go over this. I'm excited for the post draw tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, where we will get to see where all these horses draw. We'll obviously get the morning lines for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And then do you know at what point during the day or the week, whether that's tomorrow or Tuesday, where we'll get the morning lines for the 13 other Breeders' Cup races?
I know that I have to get them in tomorrow night, so I'm assuming you're going to get them by end of day tomorrow at some point, maybe late on Monday night. So yeah, you'll have, when the PPs go up, I think you should have morning lines for all of these races.
Fantastic. Well, we'll leave you to it to finalize those notes and those morning lines. David, thank you again for joining us as we went over the 2 premier races on Breeders' Cup Friday, the Juvenile Fillies and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and then 2 of the other group of fantastic races that we have on Saturday in the Breeders' Cup Turf, and of course, one of the best, if not the best, Breeders' Cup Classic field that we've ever seen as far as the pre-entries go. I've been your host, Ryan Anderson. This has been Jackson Muniz, or that's been Jackson Muniz. For our guest, David Aragona, thank you guys for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with Greg Wolf of Naira TV, America's Day at the Races. We will see you guys then. Have a good night.